Hey guys, welcome to the Genshin Impact Yunjin guide for the speedrun version because there's absolutely nothing to talk about on this character. So anyway, let's get started. To be honest, Yunjin playstyle is rather straightforward. Her elemental skill is a parry similar to Beidou, however, you pretty much just use this skill for the purpose of energy generation and that's it. So you pretty much just tap her elemental skill and then cast her elemental burst so that you can funnel some amount of geo energy to yourself. Her elemental burst is where it gets interesting, where you will do bonus damage based on your defense whenever one of your party members do normal attack, and of course you will only get this bonus damage 30 times, but to be honest nobody really is able to proc all 30 damages, so it doesn't really matter. So pretty much you just normal attack and you do some damage and you call it a day. Yeah. Of course, as Yunjin do bonus flat damage, she reassemble a sub DPS a lot more than a support. So the direct comparison here is Albedo, who is a 5-star Geo sub DPS. Of course, to no surprise, Albedo is just better than Yunjin, but of course that's just 5-star being better than 4 stars. Not only Albedo can do really good damage, Albedo also have much bigger AoE radius than Yunjin, because Yunjin is tied to your normal attack, which usually don't have that huge AoE except when you're playing something like Noelle. But more importantly is of course that most character doesn't trigger Yunjin fast enough because they don't normal attack fast enough anyway. So even though Albedo takes slower, which is only once every 2 seconds, it honestly don't really matter, and Albedo is just pretty much better in most cases. Of course, exceptions such as Yoimiya exist, as Yoimiya is able to attack really fast and Yoimiya is pure single target. So in this case, Yunjin just win out. In fact, Yunjin pair really well with Yoimiya, and arguably Yunjin is better than Bennett in a Yoimiya team. So something you could do is pair Yunjin together with Yoimiya, Xingqiu, and Zhongli, which will grant you the Geo Resonance as well as a just a lot of defensive option from Zhongli, and so this is a really amazing team for Yoimiya. Unfortunately, this does not fix core issues from Yoimiya, which is single target damage, so it doesn't really boost Yoimiya by that much, but it does make her a little bit better. But of course, there are definitely more characters that can utilize Yunjin except for Yoimiya. Pretty much any time that your party involve normal attacking a decent amount and you don't have any other option, then Yunjin is a good substitution. For example, one example is Hu Tao with double Geo. When you're playing Hu Tao, Xingqiu together with Zhongli, you can also put Yunjin in to pair the double Geo if you don't have Albedo. In this case, because generally you do N2C on Hu Tao, which is 2 normal attack followed by a charge attack, you actually end up normal attacking a lot on Hu Tao, and therefore you are able to get a lot of value of Yunjin. Of course, the 5-star Geo sub DPS Albedo is still better, but Yunjin is a really good substitution if you don't have Albedo, and to be honest, she's not even that far behind. Other characters that can utilize Yunjin really well include like Noelle, where Noelle do a lot of normal attack in a really big AoE fashion during her elemental burst, which means you can effectively proc Yunjin bonus damage onto multiple enemy very easily. Likewise, character like Razor, who also normal attack during his elemental burst a lot, can also utilize Yunjin in a similar fashion as Noelle. Similar to Hu Tao, you can also put Xiao together with double Geo, which you'll use Yunjin and Zhongli if you don't have Albedo. Now of course you're wondering, oh, doesn't Yunjin only work on normal attack, not plunge attack? But the thing is, as I showed you in the previous noob to pro Xiao video, you can actually sneak a normal attack in right before you plunge, so you will be able to trigger Yunjin still. Obviously, it's not ideal you don't trigger it that much, but as a Albedo substitution, it is fine. In this team here, your Sucrose already have the Furling Tail as she's a Callus user, and generally, you want to switch directly from Sucrose into Xiao, which lets you funnel the Anemo energy, so you don't want to bring Ningguang in this case, because Ningguang will kind of ruin your rotation a little bit while not even preventing that much. Now, a lot of people might also think that Eula normal attack a lot, and that is true, but unfortunately, Eula doesn't really have a open spot in her party for a character like Yunjin, because usually you want an electro character and you want a crowd characters, and most of the time running something else like either a Beidou as your second electro or running a second crowd just for more battery, it's just gonna get better results. But if you really want to, you could bring Yunjin and maybe you can pick like a funny normal attack team or something. Unfortunately, Yunjin doesn't pair too well with Ito because most of the time Ito is spending his time doing charge attack, which means you cannot proc the Yunjin bonus damage properly. But if you don't have anything else and you need a third Geo character to proc girl buff, it's okay. To be honest, personally, I would rather just play double Pyro with Changeling, but if you really want to do triple Geo or you don't have the bandit available, then you could do that. Changeling, as Yunjin is a 4-star character, you are able to acquire constellation on your Yunjin, but the only one that really matters is her C6. All her other constellation are kinda meh. Her C1 decrease your cooldown by 18% on your elemental skill, but honestly it doesn't really matter because it don't really get to cast more elemental skills anyway. Her C2 just give you more normal attack damage for your other party member, and her C4 just increase her defense when she trigger a reaction, which means you get better scaling of your talent, which means you do more bonus damage when you normal attack. Her C6 is the one that's interesting because there is currently not a lot of attack speed increase support in the game. The only one being GNC2, which of course not everyone have. And of course C6 Yunjin might be just as hard to get, but it is something that you can aim for in the long term. Attack speed is a really interesting modifier because if you attack more, you just do more damage. Now obviously it's not always the case, especially for a character that you rely on reaction, because just because you can attack more doesn't mean you can proc more reaction. But for a character that does not rely on reaction as much, for example like Yoimiya, for example like Raiden, attack speed increase can actually give them a huge amount of damage, again because it just lets you attack more in a shorter period of time. So attack speed is actually a really good stat to have for certain characters. Unfortunately, it's just not accessible for the current moment. Something to note about Yunjin A4 talent is that while you can get more bonus by having 4 different elements in your party, it's not really worth going for it because it generally grieves your team drafting phases. So this bonus is nice to have, but it should not be the focus when you're coming to play Yunjin. Building Yunjin is pretty straightforward. The only polearm that you really should be running is Favonius Lens. There is argument for other polearm, but realistically speaking, the only polearm that you should really care is the Favonius Lens. Now of course, if you choose to, you can also run other weapon with energy recharge such as Engulfing Lightning, Skyra Spine, or the 4-star craftable Star Glitter weapon. But realistically speaking, you should just pretty much always be running Fav. There's not really any reason not to run it unless you don't have enough crit rate, and therefore you decide to go with the higher energy recharge weapon Engulfing Lightning, but that's a 5-star weapon. And in terms of artifact, the only thing you care about on Yunjin is defense percent as well as energy recharge. Some other worth considering options is like 4-piece Petra, but the thing about 4-piece Petra is that it's very inconsistent. You have to pick up the crystals on the character wearing the Petra set, which is Yunjin, and that's a lot of field time that's not really worth it. So in general, this is very inconsistent. Something you can consider if you can use it, but in general, you wouldn't use it. As always, there's also the 4-piece Noblest that's pretty much always good. 20% attack to your entire party, pretty much the standard for every single support. Something always you can use. With the Favonius Lens, you should have good enough energy recharge to be honest, because her elemental burst is only a 60 cost, which is not that much, but of course try to get ER on your substat as well, which will help you dramatically. And if you don't have enough energy recharge, you can also run something like 2 Husk, 2 Elm Bomb, but honestly it doesn't really matter that much. And of course main stat wise, just go defense, but you want to aim for a good amount of crit rate to proc your Favonius Lens, as well as a good amount of energy recharge in your substat if possible. If you don't have enough critical rate to proc Favonius Lens, you can also switch the circlet out for a critical rate circlet instead, which will help dramatically when you're trying to proc your Favonius Lens, especially if it's not high refinement. Overall, Yunjin is a good tech option whenever your team involve a lot of normal attack. It's pretty much just a albedo substitution in most cases, but it could be better, for example, for a certain character like Yoimiya. But with that being said, yeah, this character, that's pretty much all it does. I know it is pretty boring. I'll go back to BEDGE now. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time. BEDGE. Oh! My Cinnabar Spindle is refined 1! I didn't refine it! Oh! That's why my damage is copium! I forgot to refine it!